Hey, Brendan.
Hey Dennis, how are you?
Doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing spectacular. I've been looking forward to this event for probably the last 2 months, so I'm excited to actually have it.
Yeah, it is a very exciting partnership, and I think this will be a very exciting webinar for our viewers. And thank you to everyone who has joined us. Let's give 2 or 3 minutes for everyone to join us. While obviously, as we know, Zoom likes to update just as you're about to join a meeting. So let's just wait a couple of minutes before we start. And yeah.
How's the weather down there in Florida, Dennis?
I'm actually in Europe, so it's
Oh,
it's still kind of in between summer and spring. But the good thing is that we haven't moved to the summertime yet, like you guys. So for us, it's not as late. So that's the good thing. I think we can cover more time zones, or at least our time zones are a little bit closer than they usually are.
wait, so what time is it there
It's
right now?
it's 8 p.m.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, normally it would be 9 p.m. already here, but
That's
we're a little bit closer than usual.
nice.
So yeah, let's just give another minute for everyone to update their Zooms, and then we can start off. But thank you for accepting this invite, and we're really excited to have you on the webinar. I think it will be really great that you can share some of your insights from your industry, and obviously these being somewhat similar, but at the same time different asset classes. It will be really great to explore this.
Yeah, I mean, and look at coincidence, universe, God, whatever, your belief of influences. It just seems like since we conceived this, it's become an absolute perfect moment to present this partnership and what it can do, with how these markets are moving and just the world in general. So yeah, this is just absolutely perfect.
Yeah, I agree. And okay, I think we're good to start. Everyone should have their Zoom clients updated by now. So hopefully everyone has joined. And so obviously I'd like to welcome all of the viewers. And again, thank you, Brandon, for joining us on this webinar. I think it will be really exciting. It's a great partnership. And we'll discuss today sort of this bridge between the old money and the new money and, and how through our partnership, we connect these two different worlds. And I would like to remind everyone that you're welcome to leave your questions in the chat box below. We'll address those right after we finish the presentation. So if you have any questions while we present, please do write them to us, and we'll address those after the presentation. So my name is Dianis Leggers. I'm a business development manager at ForumPay, and joining me today is Brandon Thor, who's the CEO of Thor Metals Group. Brandon, would you like to introduce yourself briefly and start with your part of the presentation?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Brandon Thor. I'm the CEO and founder of Thor Metals Group. If I had a black turtleneck, I would have worn it today because I believe that what we're about to present to you folks is something as prescient and groundbreaking as Steve Jobs presenting the iPhone, back in the 2006, 2007. I mean, this is a seamless, direct way to move from crypto into physical gold. And as I'm going to kind of highlight in a few minutes, the commonalities between the investors in each, the commonalities between the goals of each, is staggering. And so to be able to have that direct bridge that enables people to diversify either their physical gold portfolio with crypto or their crypto portfolio with physical gold is just it's unprecedented. And with that, I'll give you guys a bit of background about Thor Metals Group as a company. So Thor Metals Group, we are a physical precious metals dealer. Sell the actual physical asset. These are coins and bars that our clients acquire. There's two ways that they acquire them. They either acquire them within a retirement plan, or they acquire them what's known as direct delivery. So they would send a bank wire, and we would ship the physical gold and silver directly to them. Okay, so that's what we are. We are a dealer of physical metals. But more than that, we have an identity and we have a very distinct personality, and that is as a disruptor. this is a purpose-driven company, okay? We were formed a bit unorthodox in the sense that most companies are formed with the primary goal to turn a profit, to generate revenue. Now, granted, we are not Sisters of Mercy charity by any means, but our primary goal was an actual purpose, and the purpose was to solve a problem that we perceived was occurring and was just amplifying, which is a broken fiat currency system. And the solution is not what we discovered, but it's just something that has been really suppressed and kind of kept out of the public eye. And we felt that there's a few ways that we can actually not only bring it into the spotlight, but also make sure that people that do invest in it do it in the correct manner. So that being said, when most companies, again, that's their first goal, we actually use profits, revenue as a tool to perpetuate our mission and our goal. We just strongly believe that physical gold and silver is a form of money, and it's the only true form of money. Of course, crypto, I think there's an argument there as well, but let me go into that in a couple minutes. But when you look at the fiat currency system, when you look at the US dollar, and you look at the concept of, just taking your paycheck in US dollars, I mean, you're actually acquiring loans backed by the United States government. If you pull a dollar bill out of your pocket, it says federal note, a note's a loan. And the government is $37 trillion in debt. So you're acquiring these loans backed by a $37 trillion debtor, and that's what you're choosing to store your wealth in. And then, of course, there's physical gold and silver. Okay. Now, that is not backed by anything. I mean, that has an intrinsic value. It's been around since the advent of mankind. It's mentioned in the Bible 431 times. So, I mean, we're talking something that has a strong, consistent track record, and it's stable, it's secure, but yet there's a disconnect because less than 1% of the investing public actually acquires physical gold and silver. So our mission, especially with the recklessness that has existed here in our economic system, especially in the United States the last 20 years, is to disseminate as loudly and as widely as possible the education on physical gold, physical silver, how it can serve that dynamic purpose as your storage of wealth and as an alternative form of currency, and then of course to facilitate those acquisitions as the dealer. So that is what we do. And moving on, Danis. So here's the deal: as a disruptor, we discovered that the next iteration in our evolution as a company and in our mission in terms of disseminating this education, in terms of presenting a means of people protecting their wealth against a currency that they don't have a lot of control over. When you print dollars, you dilute the value of them. Nobody asks your permission before they do that. When you amass debt, you diminish the credibility of who's backing that debt, which is the United States government, which is coincidentally also backing the dollar. Nobody's asking you that. So again, we are not only promoting and facilitating the acquisition of an alternative to that, but a way to protect against that. But we've also discovered that there is what we would call the new guard, which is cryptocurrency. It also serves those same goals. And that's why that had an initial appeal among people. And that's why, in my belief, it's become so popular. So you have, the old guard, physical gold and silver, which has just been that eternal measuring stick of value. And then you have, the new guard, which is cryptocurrency, serves a lot of the same purposes, accomplishes a lot of the same goals, but is just simply, up with the times, up with the technology. And, it is the function of just simply our evolution as an economy, and I guess as a species in general. So our next logical step as a disruptor was to say, hey, listen, if our mission is to help people protect their wealth, and it's certainly to help their people protect their wealth against what we view as an inferior, suboptimal, means of doing so, which is the dollar, then we should also be open to cryptocurrency and also be open to allowing our clients the ability to diversify their, let's call it, freedom money portfolio. So, to not just hold physical gold for the purposes that I just said, but to also be able to hold crypto, because who knows the way the world's going to spin. And that's why you have diversification in everything you do in life, and especially in your investments. And it should be the same with your currencies. So you think about gold and crypto, and let's think about what they have in common. All right. They both are private. They both are borderless. They both are immune to and also combat manipulation, corruption, all the things that the fiat currency system, has unfortunately had attached to it. So you have that closed blockchain. So you can't print Bitcoin, you can't expand that system, and then you have physical gold, which you can't print as well. So again, it's two paths. There's a lot of differences, but they lead to the same destination. So with that in mind, people should have both. People should certainly have an element of each in their portfolios. Now, what was holding people back, in my opinion, or one of the big things or one of the big headwinds, I should say, is the sense that in order to do this, they would have to do something that, number one, is unappealing, but number two is using a system that they do not believe in, and is actually the reason why they're in crypto or they're in physical gold in the first place a lot of times, which is they have to sell that metal, put it into a bank account, send a bank wire, and go through all those those steps of, I guess, Big Brother-esque, just tracking and whatnot. Now, and please don't mistake my words as tracking as a criminal, but you know what I'm saying. There's a amount of privacy that we just yearn for as individuals, or sovereignty, so to speak. But here's the thing: what we discovered is by using ForumPay, we can present a solution to this. We can actually allow clients to acquire physical gold or Bitcoin or any crypto seamlessly and directly without having that middleman and that transaction, which is more convenient. Obviously, it's quicker, and it preserves the very features of the transaction, the very privacy of the transaction, that people really like, that people find so appealing, and find to be one of the major reasons why they're actually invested in or own physical gold or physical crypto. So that's what ForumPay does. That is what they do. So basically, what you're able to do is, if you have a portfolio of Bitcoin and you want to take a portion and hedge it out and acquire, whatever, a certain percentage in physical gold, then you can do so without having to liquidate it, without having to then send it to a bank account and then send a bank wire. You can literally seamlessly and directly move it into gold, and vice versa. If you have physical gold and you want to have some crypto representation in your portfolio, you can do so. You can liquidate the gold. You don't have to then have the money go to a bank and then send a wire to a wallet or one of these exchanges and then acquire the metal. You can seamlessly move from one asset to the next. So this is the high level the opportunity, and I hope I've done a good job of explaining that. And if this sounds like a very, groundbreaking type of an opportunity, it is. And I think Danis will do a good job in kind of filling in the details and the technicalities on how this is actually achieved.
Thank you, Brandon. Thank you for this. And yeah, I'll discuss this a little bit from our side, from the transaction perspective. But thank you for sharing this. And just again, reminder, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please send them in the chat. We'll address those after the presentation. But yeah, I'll walk through briefly from our side, from the purely the transactional perspective, and a little bit more about our company. So in general, ForumPay is a global cryptocurrency payment processing company. We're fully compliant globally. The only jurisdictions where we don't work are the OFAC sanctioned ones, but we pretty much have a global reach. And some of the reasons why this company was founded to basically give cryptocurrencies the currency functionality, because previously it was mainly a speculative asset, but using ForumPay, you can also use it as a currency. And for the merchant, it's basically the same as accepting any other form of payment. So why should merchants accept crypto payments in general? So basically, one of the ways, the easiest ways to describe it is that the more options your clients have to pay, the more likely that they're going to purchase your goods and services, and that's one of the key reasons. And it's the same as accepting any other form of payment for the merchant. And it's and one more thing to add to that is that it's the fastest growing consumer demographic in the world. Just 5 years ago, it was around 100 million wallets globally. At the moment, it's close to 600 million wallets globally, and that number, according to Statista, is expected to surge to close to 1 billion by the end of this year. So it's a really rapidly growing consumer demographic. So some of the reasons why ForumPay should be your solution to accept crypto payments. So one of the key things is that ForumPay makes crypto payments easy, compliant, risk-free, and with the total addressable market of 600 million wallets, when we designed this solution, we wanted merchants to be able to accept payments from any of those wallets. So this solution is wallet agnostic. So any customer who owns a wallet can pay your business, and there are no risk or compliance issues, or you don't need to hold the crypto or sell it yourself. The whole flow is fully automated, and we make it as seamless as possible. And in terms of the crypto payments for high value assets, it's one of those industries where we see very strong adoption, and there, when looking from both perspectives, the buyer and the seller, when using cryptocurrency as a form of payment, it's convenient for both sides. So for the merchant, it's typically faster and cheaper to transact this way. There's no risk of chargebacks, for example. And for the buyer, again, if they hold crypto assets, for them, it's simply more convenient to make the purchase directly from their wallet instead of having to put the crypto on an exchange, convert it, withdraw those funds through a bank wire, and then pay that way. So it's essentially making the whole process easier and more efficient for both sides, the buyer and the seller. And on top of that, obviously, there's this new angle, which is basically sort of like a diversification play, where you're not selling your assets, you're not liquidating them for fiat on an exchange, you're basically turning them into a different asset class. So in this case, for example, you're purchasing gold or precious metals, and you can do it directly from the safety of your crypto wallet. So again, some of the benefits for using cryptocurrency to purchase precious metals: it's fast, it's easy, it's fully compliant, and it's a seamless way to move between different asset classes. And we'll discuss this a little bit later, but essentially you can do both. You can turn your crypto into gold or digital assets, and then you can essentially move in the opposite direction as well, which is also possible thanks to this partnership. From a merchant perspective, like from Brandon's perspective, it's also very easy to integrate. So essentially, the best way to describe integrations is that it's flexible. You can invoice your clients directly from the dashboard. You don't even need an integration. Any mobile device or any device connected to the internet can be used to invoice your clients. There are plugins available for shopping carts, full API integration, or in some cases, we even do custom integrations if there is an existing system that the merchant uses. We're also happy to explore adding this form of payment to their existing systems, so they don't need to use multiple devices in their stores. In terms of security and compliance, obviously in financial transactions, these are some of the key things to consider. And us being a fully compliant and regulated institution company, what we do is we obviously do full KYC verification on our merchants. But in addition to that, and that's something that's very important, as more and more companies start to use crypto, and some of them perhaps look at this as an option to maybe simply collect payments in their own wallet. We use Chainalysis for our KYT, or Know Your Transaction. And this is very critical because every crypto basically has a lot of history, and you can see what has happened with that crypto throughout its lifetime. And for us, we have to do this because of our compliance. But essentially, we check all of the crypto that's being used, the wallet and the crypto, to make sure that when you're receiving a payment in crypto, that crypto has not been used for any illegal activities, or it doesn't come from sanctioned exchange. Where if you just simply collect crypto funds from different sources in your own wallet, you typically don't do that, and that's a major risk for any business. consider. And just to summarize it from our payments perspective side, it's an easy way to accept crypto payments risk-free from the fastest growing consumer demographic in the world. And all wallets are supported, so it's wallet agnostic solution. All of our flows are fully automated, so the conversion is automated. You don't need to manually sell the crypto, initiate the settlement. It goes through the flow automatically. We even do have automated payment error handling, and obviously we can also support different flows like crypto to crypto or crypto to stablecoin. And yeah, and it's also really easy to integrate, or you don't even need to integrate. You can use it directly from the dashboard as well. So that's kind of on our solution. And before we go to the questions from the audience, I have a couple questions and some notes I made during your presentation. So Brandon, maybe we can just quickly go through some of the questions I have for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if we consider that maybe some of the viewers are not very familiar with your industry, or they have not purchased precious metals before, they've not invested perhaps in gold, what kind of, in your case, if, for example, someone uses their Bitcoin to purchase gold from your company, what kind of delivery do you offer? Do they actually need to receive the gold, or do you store the gold for them? How does that part work?
Yeah, that's a great question, Danis. And this is a very important. And this is one of the major benefits of owning physical gold and silver, is that you're able to eliminate what's known as counterparty risk, meaning that when you acquire physical metals, so once you take your Bitcoin, you transfer it to ForumPay, who then would turn it into cash and send that wire to Thor Metals Group. We would then ship you the physical gold and silver. So it would be fully insured. You would sign for it, and you take actual possession of the metal. Now, if that is something where you're a bit uncomfortable, you don't want to have that type of value in your home, of course, we have relationships with every major depository and storage facility in the country. So we would just help you set up an account, and then we would just ship it there where it's inspected and then inventoried into your account. And the cost of doing that is minimal. We're talking, about $150, $200 for every $100,000 you have stored annually. But by default, we would ship it directly to you.
Okay. And what's the split do you usually see? Do most people choose the delivery, or are you storing?
You know what? They choose the delivery, and the ones that choose the storage, I make them a deal. I say, listen, let me ship you the metal. If you're still uncomfortable once you see it in the flesh, then I will pay for it to be picked up and set up at a depository, because it's so funny. A lot of people, they picture physical gold like the movies, and that is billions of dollars in gold. I mean, $1 million in physical gold fits in a women's shoebox. So it really is quite humbling in real life when you see it. So but most people will be comfortable with storing it themselves, but it's up to them. If they're more comfortable at a depository, then there's plenty of options.
Okay. So about 10 Bitcoins would fit in a woman's shoebox in terms of gold. That's a good way to describe it. So the next question I had for you is, do you have any like minimums or maximums for your transactions that can be purchased?
Yeah. So another good question there. Basically, when you look at metals, you look at just with the prices, and you can do the same with crypto. And you kind of want to make sense of, what type of dollar amount do I need to use to actually, get some bang out of the investment. We have a soft minimum of $25,000. Now, when I say soft, that means if somebody really just wants to see how the process goes, then we'll work with them. I mean, we'll send them one silver coin if they really just want to see the technical logistics. But really, 25,000 is probably the floor where you're gonna be able to get the value that you deserve, from investing in metals, and then of course it goes up from there. So that would be right where you'd be sitting as a floor, right around that $25,000 mark.
Okay, understood. Thank you. And in terms of like typical buyers, what's kind of the demographic that you see for precious metals and golds? What's the typical buyer?
Yeah, listen, I'm glad you asked that because this was something that I was remiss in mentioning in our initial conversation. And here's where I see the crux of the opportunity. Is the typical gold investor is older. I mean, they're baby boomers. They're an older demographic. And they're just very scared or uncertain, about the direction of the world. And so, being that physical gold has been around for so long, is so consistent, is such an efficient safe haven, they look towards that. Now, the younger generations, they're seeing the same things. It's not like they're blind to things going on, but of course, they're more understanding of crypto. That's what they've been raised with, and that's where their knowledge base is. And so this really is bridging the old with the young, and kind of having that education be more universally spread among the two assets, as opposed to just having old people in gold, young people in crypto. So you'd have a mixture. But to answer your question, generally it's going to be a baby boomer, but we're hoping to ultimately get the education out so we can start getting younger generations. And I'm sure you guys are hoping to get the education out, and start getting older people involved with cryptocurrency.
Yeah, that was exactly the comment I was going to make, that we have to, our educational content has to go in like the different directions. For us, it's educating the older customer. For you, it's educating the younger customer. And actually a lot of people who probably perhaps have not considered moving from a volatile asset or high risk asset like Bitcoin, that they can easily transform that or move those funds into a safe haven like gold. And even if they don't want to store it, storage is not an issue. So with that in mind, I think that the next question I want to ask you is, if it's possible, and I mentioned this briefly during the presentation, moving in the opposite direction. So basically, can investors sell gold to you and cash out in crypto?
Yes. Okay. So, a major misconception about physical metals, because they're physical assets, is that they're in some way, quite illiquid, or more liquid than stocks or anything else. But if you acquire investment grade metals, they're just as liquid as your stocks and bonds. In fact, more liquid in the sense that it's quicker to, settle a, physical metals liquidation in a lot of ways. Now, if you're doing it, physical gold and crypto, again, it's very easy to liquidate the metals. If you acquire them through us, we guarantee buyback, so we will guarantee liquidation of any metals that you acquire through us. And then, of course, if you want to go into crypto, then we obviously go through ForumPay, and then you can go directly there. And how that would work is, if you have the metals in hand, we would send you prepaid shipping and insurance labels. They go overnight to our wholesaler. We send you a bank wire. That's how it traditionally would work. And then in this case, it would just be prepaid shipping and insurance labels. And then, of course, the Bitcoin would be distributed to you by FormPay.
Okay, excellent. And that's perhaps another interesting point to make, that when you're buying gold using crypto through this partnership, you don't have to put the crypto on exchange. You don't sell it, you don't liquidate it, you exchange it into a different asset class. And then pretty much the same on the opposite direction, that you don't need to get those funds in your bank account. You can move them directly through you into your wallet.
Exactly, Dennis. Yeah, and I mean, I cannot understate this. I mean, both of these transactions, if you just picture them, especially if they're meaningful, amounts of money. I mean, if you're liquidating a lot of physical gold, and then that wire is going into a bank account, and then you're gonna, go into a, crypto, that is a lot less appealing, especially towards the type of investor, the type of mindset of the investor that likes the privacy of crypto, or likes the privacy of physical gold. And on the other side as well, the prospect of liquidating, the Bitcoin that they've held for 8 years, whatever those proceeds are, then moving them into a bank account, and then sending that bank wire for physical gold. So this just as a terrific conduit or bridge, so to speak, to seamlessly and directly move between the assets without that daunting and foreboding middleman or that middle transaction. Not only for convenience but also to preserve the sovereignty that these assets provide as one of the main benefits of owning them.
Yeah, exactly. And I totally agree with you. And you being on sort of like forefront of the innovation in your industry and now opening up your business for crypto payments, what has been your experience so far working with ForumPay?
Listen, it's been eye-opening, and it's been encouraging. And I mean, I'm not a baby boomer, but from a technology standpoint, I might as well be probably a baby boomer's grandpa. So this was something very new to me. And once I was able to understand the software, I mean, it was so easy. It was actually easier than sending a wire or dealing with the banking system. And then at the same end, working with you guys to develop this partnership, this, and I want to share this with everybody watching. This was a unique experience for me, and it's something that should give people that are considering doing this a lot of comfort, because your vetting process is quite daunting. I mean, you know your client and all the things that that we had to provide you guys, and all the microscope that you put the company under to make sure that we were of the a high level of integrity, or that we passed those levels of integrity, honesty, and transparency necessary to even do business with you folks. Was really encouraging to me, and vice versa. I know that you guys have a lot of very, very stringent compliance standards that you need to make sure that you follow and your adherence to. And so that's really, if people are wondering why this has never been presented before, it's really because it is, if you really think about it, an unprecedented type of opportunity. And the only way that this can be done without taking on a ton of risk is if your company, just by nature, is doing everything by the book and is of a very high level of integrity. And so that is really the only reason why we're here today. The only reason why we're able to offer this opportunity is because we were able to pass your vetting. You guys are able to stay in compliance with the stringent standards that are with the crypto industry. And so combining that gives us the ability to allow this. And it's just a tremendous opportunity for those investors that want to take advantage of it.
Agreed. I think there's a lot of potential for this. So that's all for my questions. Do you have any questions for me, or before we jump to the viewer questions?
Yeah, so Danis, before, obviously, and I'll just flip the question that you asked me. Before we started this partnership, did you have much knowledge of investing in physical gold, or what was your, experience, if any, or knowledge base?
So coming from banking and investing background, I knew the theoretics of it. Like I knew that you can purchase gold as an index or some sort of tradable asset on the exchange, but not with physical delivery or where you actually get the gold. So that's why I had some of those questions like, can you store it? Can you send it? What's the story with that? How do you go about actually, does it come in like a huge box? Do you dig it in your backyard? But considering that it takes 10 Bitcoins and it all fits in a shoebox, then it's not really an issue, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and the reason I ask is because, yeah, I was an investment banker, and man, this was something that was very new to me when I got into hard assets. And then of course, crypto. So you're always learning. And what I found about the gold investor, which I'm sure is probably the same with the crypto investor, is they're students. They have open minds, and they like to learn. And so with the proper education, you'll discover some really, really strong benefits that oftentimes aren't really announced or projected to the public. So that's kind of just an observance that I've had relating to just the mindset the investors, of crypto investors in gold. And I think that gives it gives them a major advantage in identifying this as the opportunity that it is, which is massive, and then hopefully taking advantage of it.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And especially that this partnership not only brings two asset classes together, but it also brings the people who are involved in those asset classes, and they sometimes overlap. But I think that there are still big differences, and this is something where it can be a learning opportunity for both of those sides.
Yeah, Dennis, and just to kind of put a punctuation point on that, this is why I believe this is the perfect moment to do this. And correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I feel like there was almost like two, oil and water, two religions. You either worshiped at the altar of crypto or you worshiped at the altar of physical gold. And it was almost like being in the opposite political party. But I feel that as the world has become more uncertain and as the economic system has become, more unpredictable, I feel that, at least on the gold investor side, they're willing to put their differences aside, or maybe their misgivings about certain things, of one investment or the other, or one asset or the other, and just realize that, hey, we are fighting the same enemy and we are combating the same the same problem here, and the solution we're providing has more in common than it has not. And once we realize that, I feel that this is a good time to come together and say, I think the solution is not, hey, worshiping at one altar or the other, but by diversifying and making sure that you have representations of both in your portfolio.
Yeah, yeah, and the good thing that all of these industries and they've been living together, right? Gold, digital assets, and fiat money. They still coexist, and they still have to coexist in one world. It just the more optionalities you have, the more options you actually have. So, for example, if crypto is falling and you can easily move into gold, then it's you don't have to believe gold. It's still an easy way for you to get out of the risk assets and move into the safe haven. So, the more options you have, obviously the better.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, should we take a quick look at the questions from our viewers then?
Let's dive in.
So we have a couple of questions from Nicholas. So first one is, are there any additional fees for converting crypto to fiat when purchasing metals? So I can address that one. And the way our model works is that we have one all-inclusive processing fee for our merchants, and it includes everything. It includes the conversion from crypto into fiat and also the settlement to the merchant. So as a customer, if the merchant is passing on the fee to the payer, you would simply pay one all-inclusive processing fee, and no additional fees apart from that. Then, Brandon, there's a question for you. Is there an option for international shipping, and how are customs or taxes handled?
So that's a great question. First and foremost, I'm not a CPA. I'm not a tax professional. My sister is, coincidentally enough. But yes, there is an option for international shipping. We do have international clients. The reason why we have so few is just simply, for purposes of marketing. But how that would be handled is ultimately up to, the country that you reside in. So we'll just follow, whatever sort of compliance that they mandate of us. Some countries actually it's pretty seamless to ship metals into, and others it can be somewhat daunting. But the answer is you do have the option, and it would just be a matter of what your specific country's rules and laws are about shipping physical gold and silver, and then making sure that we're in compliance with them.
Okay, thank you. The next one is for me, I believe, and that's a good question. How do you handle the volatility of cryptocurrency when pricing metals? And that is essentially where our solution comes into play. And when you're purchasing, the seller is invoicing in you in fiat. So, for example, the invoice is 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 US dollars. When you're making that payment, you will see exactly how much crypto you need to pay for that particular transaction. If you're happy with that amount, you simply initiate a payment. Then you have 15 minutes to send the crypto, because that's the time window within which we guarantee for you that you're sending a specific amount of crypto and that the merchant will receive that specific amount of funds in their bank account. So essentially, our payment solution is the one that removes the volatility of cryptocurrency for both the payer and the merchant as well.
The Danish, can I add on to that? And our system actually removes that as well, because when we put together a metals portfolio, regardless of that movement intraday, we will honor those prices and those quotes through the end of business that day. So you can rely on whatever the portfolio is, whatever those prices that were quoted to you, as long as you can get that payment executed. Of course, if it's through ForumPay, as long as you can get it done in that day.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. The next question, I think, it's probably for both of us. Where do you see the future of alternative assets like gold and crypto in the next 5 to 10 years?
So let me take that real quick, and then you can let me know if you agree, or if it's different on the crypto end. Listen, here's where I see physical gold and silver going. I mean, when you look at the history of gold and silver, it's overseen the rise and fall of thousands of empires, thousands of different forms of currency, from barter and exchange to to actually being on the gold standard here. So it's always had a seat at the table, regardless of what the currency system is, and that's why I call it that eternal measuring stick of value. And so moving forward, it will always have a seat at the table. Whatever comes next, it will certainly be represented as far as what an ounce of gold is in relation to it. Now, where do I see the asset going as far as performance? Well, let's look at the three factors that drive physical precious metals. One is the strength of the currency, the country you're in this case, the dollar. Second is the volatility of the equity market. And then the third is geopolitical uncertainty. All right. So if the dollar goes weaker, then gold tends to increase substantially, because it just takes more of those weaker dollars to buy that very same ounce of gold. Now, if the equity market is behaving very volatilely or is correcting, then people are going to run to safe havens. So you're going to see an increase generally, or historically, that's what you've seen in physical metals when you have uncertainty in the market. And then, of course, geopolitical uncertainty, or I call this world craziness. Anything that occurs, China invades Taiwan, or North Korea launches a missile test, or Trump says something domestically here, you're always going to see a bump up in metals, because again, metals is that one consistent thing that you can hang your hat on, that's going to be there with the cockroaches, and the nuclear holocaust. So, I mean, and I hate to be, a fear monger like that, or, paint such a bleak picture, but you know what I'm saying? So when you look at those three drivers and you look at the future, if you feel that the world is going to start holding hands and singing Kumbaya, then don't buy gold, because ultimately that means it's going to be a very certain world. If you feel that this equity market that's been driven by, in my opinion, financial engineering and quantitative easing for the last 15 years is going to continue to just, rocket ship up, then don't buy gold. And if you think that the dollar is going to buy more in the next 3 to 5 years, then again, don't buy gold. But if you think the opposite, then the future is very, very bright for gold. And that's why you've seen the performance of gold, just behave so dynamically since the start of this year, and really actually, even in the end of last year. And that's why I believe you're going to see that performance amplify, as we move forward, and as the dollar gets weaker, as the market gets more volatile, and of course, as the world gets even crazier.
Okay, thank you. From my side, I'll maybe comment on crypto because that's where I've been involved more. But obviously, it's a lot newer industry that hasn't been around for thousands of years, so we don't really have like track record that goes way back. But with crypto, I think that there are differences, right? You have Bitcoin, which is more similar to gold because there's a limited supply of it, and it tends to work like an investment and more similar to gold. And then you have other cryptocurrencies like stablecoins, which are purely used for transactional purposes. If, for example, you have a buyer from Europe that's going to buy gold from you, instead of Bitcoin, they might just use USDT, because for them, that's a more stable value that they use only for transactional purposes. So I think this is still a market that's evolving quite a lot, and it's changing a lot throughout the years. But I think differentiating Bitcoin is more like gold. That's a form of an investment, but at the same time, we're also seeing quite a strong adoption of stable coins that are used purely for for efficiency and for moving funds faster around the world.
But Danis, don't you feel that the same things are going to drive Bitcoin? Because, if the currency weakens in that country, or I'm going to use the United States as an example, then, that gives, probably a larger appetite for alternatives to get out of that currency into Bitcoin or into, gold. And the same thing with, uncertainty geopolitically, getting into something that, is borderless, or, something that doesn't have the, representation of a government or something. I feel like there's some commonalities there, and
Yeah.
some drivers that will ultimately move both both metals and crypto forward, and that's obviously why I think this partnership is such a dynamic opportunity.
Yeah, of course. But at the same time, on like shorter term moves, you see that when something bad happens, crypto markets crash, right?
Yeah.
And then so it's overall long-term trend obviously is up, but it's reacting more to these short-term events. Okay, so the next question, if I use crypto to buy gold or silver, will I be able to sell it at some point in the future and get my crypto or stablecoin back? I think we answered already that one, but if you'd like to give a brief answer.
Yeah, let's be very clear here, because I think you can't understate this. Yes, absolutely. I mean, this is incredibly liquid and incredibly transferable one way to the other. So, if you acquire physical gold and silver and it goes up and you're at a profit and you want to pivot back into Bitcoin, and let's say Bitcoin is dipped 20%, you can do that directly, seamlessly, and immediately through using us in ForumPay, and then of course just acquiring Bitcoin at whatever the commiserate price is on that day, and then you'll liquidate the metal for whatever the market value is on that day. So that process is very easy, and with ForumPay it doesn't require that middleman of the banking system. It just is direct and seamless straight across the asset class.
Okay, thank you for that. And then the next question is more on timing. How long does the process from selling my crypto to having physical gold last? And how about the other way around?
So
And
you want to take that, Dennis?
I can explain it from our transactional perspective, and then you can maybe on the actual physical delivery.
Sure.
So in terms of the transactions, our transactions are basically confirmed instantly. So you use crypto to pay, we confirm the transaction instantly. That takes minutes, seconds, depending on the blockchain. And then we settle the funds to the seller on the same or the next business day. So essentially that's when the funds reach Brandon, but the transaction is confirmed within seconds or minutes, and that's basically the moment when it's ready to go out and be delivered.
Yeah, and then on our end, so everything is just, I mean, as far as instantaneously, I mean, everything is going to be locked in exactly the way it is that day that you're making that that transfer. The only difference is that we are actually delivering a physical asset. So getting the delivery of that is generally going to take a few weeks. Our wholesalers are very quick about getting it out. So from the point that we get the wire to the point that you are signing for and taking possession of the metal, I would say, give it 2-3 weeks maximum. But your price is guaranteed. Your metals are guaranteed. The portfolio that we've, constructed is guaranteed, the day that the transfer takes place.
Okay, thank you. And the other way around?
Yes. The liquidation now. So the liquidation would be, okay, if you've acquired through us now, so we know what you have, then yeah, we're going to give you a quote on it. We'll lock that in, and then we'll simply submit the prepaid shipping and insurance that goes overnight to our wholesaler, who just inspects it, make sure you didn't play hockey with it or something. Now, if you are liquidating metal that you didn't acquire through us, then we will submit that prepaid shipping and insurance label, and it goes overnight to our wholesaler. They inspect it. And at that point, then we're going to say, yeah, okay, here's the quote. But metals, it's different in crypto in the sense that gold's not gonna have these major swings. So if you get it in the mail and get it to the wholesaler overnight, I mean it's gonna be the same. If I give you a quote that day, it might move a 0.5% or something, either in your favor or against you, but it's gonna stay pretty consistent. But if you bought the metal through us, then the day I give you the quote, I'll honor it, even before you get the metal in the mail.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. The next question, I think we covered that one, but we can answer it again since if someone joined later. So when I buy gold, do I get to hold the physical gold, or is it stored somewhere for me?
Yeah. So just to, briefly answer again. So yes, the default is you hold the metal. It is shipped directly to you. You sign for it. You take possession. If you wish for it to be stored for you, then we will facilitate that occurring. Brinks, the Delaware Depository, which is the largest private depository in the United States. But these just security companies have depositories where people store their art, their wine, their metals. So we'll facilitate you setting up an account there if you wish to not hold the metal. But the default is it goes directly to you and you take possession.
Okay, thank you. The next one, why do you think more businesses, especially those in high value industries like gold, are now embracing crypto payments?
Um, I would ask, where would you be seeing that? To my knowledge, we're the only one in our industry that's really embracing, this type of an opportunity. In fact, I'm pretty sure we are, just given the fact that, our industry is, I don't want to say it's the Wild West, but it doesn't have that same level of regulation as, say, equities or annuities or, some of these other assets. Therefore, you have to pass a very stringent vetting process, which you guys put us through. And I'm not sure. I can't speak for my other competitors, but it was a tough test to pass. So, to my knowledge, this is a very, very new and exclusive opportunity that you can really just use us in ForumPay to achieve. But maybe that'll change in the future. But I see it as something that we are the first mover, and it doesn't seem like anyone is getting up to follow us.
So from my perspective, just maybe more in general, the luxury industry and any high value item industry, they tend to work well for crypto because a lot of people made a lot of money with crypto, first of all, and then secondly, it is a very rapidly growing consumer demographic, and it's, as I said, it used to be 100 million wallets 5 years ago. This year, it's expected to be close to 1 billion. So it's growing really fast. And I think that businesses that they just need to sort of move along with the times and the changing landscape in the payment space. So the next question, how does ForumPay protect gold investors from crypto market volatility? So again, we discussed this briefly before in one of the questions, but essentially, so Thor Metals, they would simply invoice you as the buyer like they normally would in US dollars. You would open the invoice, you see that there's a specific amount of crypto that you need to pay for this particular invoice, and then you lock in that rate, you make the payment, we instantly convert it into US dollars for the seller, and those US dollars are then sent to Thor Metals Group. So there is no volatility risk for both the payer and the receiver because the price to conversion rate is locked in, and it's transparent and obvious to both the buyer and obviously the sellers settled in fiat currency. And maybe one more point to add to this is that with ForumPay, we own and operate our own exchange. We have developed the payment gateway technology, so we don't really have any third-party dependencies. And when it comes to the actual conversion rate, our exchange is connected and replicating order books of 32 other major cryptocurrency exchanges. So when you are making that purchase, we ensure that you're getting the best available conversion rate for your crypto. So it's not just some conversion rate, it's the best spot conversion rate you're getting for your cryptocurrency, and the conversion rate is locked in at the time of the transaction. And yeah, so one last question, I believe, for you, Brandon. Do you ship internationally?
So yes, And here's the thing. So basically, like I said previously, we do ship internationally. We would follow the laws of your country, so there's obviously, import export laws as it relates to precious metals. Surprisingly, some countries are actually quite lenient. It's not a real daunting thing. Others not so much. But yes, it is a possibility, and it just is a matter of what your country's specific import export laws are as it relates to physical precious metals, and making sure that we are in compliance with them.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Brandon. I think that's it for our questions for today, and we're close to the hour. So it was really nice discussing this new sort of bridge between the old and the new currencies, and I think it's a really great opportunity for both sides to connect closer. And as we discussed, I think there's a lot of educational potential for both sides as well. How easy it is to move from one asset class into another.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this has been a really wonderful hour. I really appreciate you guys having me on, Danis. You've been a wonderful conversationalist and panelist, and I hope that we did a good job of really, explaining this opportunity. Because again, and I'll just end on this, and I don't want to be like, that used car salesman, but this is a prescient opportunity. I mean, something like this has never existed, where you can seamlessly and directly move, from one investment to the other, without, that cumbersome middleman of the banking system there. And so, if the people that identify this for what it is are going to be able to reap benefits in a lot of different areas, and I think that that's hopefully going to become more and more apparent to people as they explore this.
Agreed. And just before we wrap up, what's the best way to contact you if someone's looking to purchase precious metals using crypto?
Yeah, so here's the best way to get a hold of us. You go on our website, www.thormetalsgroup.com, and that'll have a direct phone number, and that'll also have a submission sheet where you can fill out your information, and we will directly get in contact with you. Now, if you mention that you were on this webinar, you want to speak with me directly, because I mean, I'm the CEO of the company, but I'm happy to speak to anybody that was on this webinar. So just make sure whoever answers the phone to let them know I was on the ForumPay webinar. I want to speak with Brandon, and I will always accept that call. So again, our website, which is www.thormetalsgroup.com. And if you wanted to email us, it would be support@thormetalsgroup.com. But the best probably way is to go on the website, because that'll have a phone number. You can fill out your information so we contact you. And it's kind of gives you more flexibility as far as when and where you contact us, and when you have the time to chat.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Brandon, for sharing your knowledge and expertise in this industry. It has been really great having you on the webinar, and thank you for everyone who stuck around for nearly an hour watching this. And I hope you guys enjoyed.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. Bye-bye.